Welcome back to Green is Good, and today we're so honored to have with us Will Allen. He's a farmer. He's the founder of CEO Growing Power. Welcome to Green is Good, Will Allen.
Great to be talking to you today.
You know, Will, you have a fascinating background, and, I'm going to let you tell the story, but I am going to say, at one point in your life in 2008, you did get the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation Fellow, which is called really a Genius Grant. But beyond that, getting a Genius Grant, which is just amazing stuff in life, I want you to share your journey a little bit, before you founded Growing Power, and why then you did found Growing Power.
Okay, I'll do the best I can in the short time that we have. Because it's been a long journey. It really started with the legacy of my family from South Carolina that moved to Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C., on the border of Rockville, Maryland, where I grew up on a farm there. And I pretty much learned a lot that I'm passing on to others from my earliest remembrance of maybe around 5 years old when I actually started helping my parents grow food. And along that continuum, I did that through, of course, grade school and high school. And I started playing sports. I played baseball at first, and then I discovered basketball at about 13 years old. And I started playing against college players at American University in D.C., the coach at that time. I got a job on campus and started playing against college guys. And by the time I was 15, I was a pretty accomplished player in terms of being able to compete. And even though I only had a short period of time actually playing basketball, I became a high school All-American.
Wow.
And the first player in the Washington, D.C. metro area to win what we call All-Metropolitan. That's the top 10 players they select all 3 years that I was in high school. And then I had over 100 scholarship offers. It came down to selecting between University of Indiana and Bloomington, IU, and University of Miami and Houston, and I decided to go to Miami in 1967, and I was the first African-American basketball player there in 1967. Was there through till 71 and got drafted by the Baltimore Bullets and the Miami Floridians in the American Basketball Association.
Wow.
We had 2 professional leagues at that time, and then I played for the Miami Floridians, and I went to Europe and played in Belgium, where I ended my career, and then I came back to the States and to Wisconsin, where my wife, and we settled there. And when I left high school at 18, I said, never again will I do this farming bit. But once I got over in Europe, I actually got reconnected to farming in Europe, and I actually, as I was playing basketball, I helped one of my Belgian teammates' family on the farm, and then that was a transformative moment back into farming. And I started actually growing food in Belgium and had 25 chickens and had a big garden, and I would feed the other American players on the other team during Thanksgiving and Christmas. Belgium being such a small country that everybody knew everybody, so here I was doing the same thing that my family did, grew food and fed family and extended family back in Maryland. So.
Will, you had it in your DNA, so there was no getting that DNA out of you.
No, we go back over 400 years.
Wow.
Farming. My father was a sharecropper who dropped his plow and mule in the 30s and moved to the D.C. area. My mother also was a sharecropper, so...
They would have been proud to see you at the White House with Michelle Obama when she was kicking off the Let's Move, and you were there with her, huh?
Yeah, I think they looking down, and they're probably quite proud that I'm carrying on the family legacy of farming, and passing it on to my kids and grandkids.
So how did you start Growing Power? How was that founded, and what year was that founded?
Well, actually, I bought the last remaining farm in 1993. I was farming 100 acres out in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, which is a suburb of Milwaukee, and I was looking for a place to sell my farm produce. And I found this last remaining farm on Silver Spring Drive, and the city owned it. They had repossessed it for taxes, and it was part of farming legacy in the northwest side of Milwaukee, and it was the last remaining piece, some old greenhouses that were pretty run down. And I was able to kind of trick a bank into giving me a loan. Because back then, people thought, here's this guy starting urban agriculture back 20 years ago. That wasn't something that was on the mainstream. So I got a bank who I was able to talk into give me a loan, and I used my retirement package from Procter & Gamble. I didn't work there many years, but I had a little bit of retirement. I cashed that in, and I was able to buy the place. And my thought was to sell my farm produce from my farm. About 2 years into the project, I helped a youth group who wanted to grow an organic garden, and I had some space behind the greenhouses, and that's how I got sucked into starting this nonprofit that now has grown to 25 farms, about 140 employees, 300 acres of production, outside production, about 25 acres of greenhouses, and we're doing work throughout the U.S. and outside of the U.S., training a lot of farmers who want to get involved in growing food in small spaces, both in urban communities, suburban communities, and rural communities that are also devastated by industrial agriculture.
Will, can you share your concept and your campaign to build a 5-story vertical farm? What's a vertical farm, and what was your inspiration behind that?
Well, there were a lot of people talking about vertical farms, and we actually, as our organization grew, we didn't have administrative space. So I thought, before anybody builds these proposed 50, 100-story vertical farms, we really needed to quantify really how to grow inside a vertical farm, which would be kind of like greenhouses stacked on top of each other and using vertical space rather than horizontal space. When you look at cities like New York and Tokyo and Boston and Vancouver and San Francisco, for future, they don't have a lot of space like we have in Detroit, where we have 90 square miles of vacant land, and in Chicago, 33 square miles of vacant land, 77,000 vacant lots, thousands of vacant lots in Milwaukee, and these former industrial-based communities. So if we're going to grow locally, which we should, because it's just unsustainable the way that we're growing and shipping food today, we're going to have to go vertical. But we have to prove that this really can cash flow, that people can make money doing it, that It makes sense. And you don't want to start by building a 100-story building. And there's not a lot of expertise in terms of how to grow in vegetables, and even inside regular greenhouses, much less vertical farms. We need to grow a lot of farmers and to be able to do this and train a lot of farmers, because this is a different type of farming than, say, my grandfather's farming or my father's farming. It's, using less space, more intensive production and less space, and making sure you have the right amount of soil fertility or whatever fertility you're using to be able to maximize the nutrition of the food that you're growing, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. It's the nutrition of our food. It's not the fact that we can grow a lot of food, but it's about the nutritional value of the food that we eat that makes the difference in our health. So that's one of the things that we're working on with the medical community and a lot of other folks, to really quantify the nutritional value of the food that we grow versus food that's coming in from outside of our community.
Will, we read that you grow your own soil. What does that mean? I don't understand that term. Can you explain to our listeners? And by the way, for our listeners out there, we've got Will Allen on. He's the founder and CEO of Growing Power. You could go to his wonderful website and learn all about this amazing things that Will is up to with all of his farms across the nation. It's growingpower.org. It's www.growingpower.org. Will, what's this about growing your own soil? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I kind of coined that phrase growing soil, and it's really composting. To be able to take carbon and nitrogen waste that's gone into the landfill and composting it and using that to grow food on top of asphalt, concrete, and hard pan clay, incorporating it into rural farmland to grow without chemicals, but you need high fertility soil, and that's how you get it.
Got it.
By taking what we're throwing into the landfill in terms of carbon, things like wood chip and leaves and paper, and things like brewery waste on the nitrogen side, which we have a lot in Milwaukee. We're a city with a lot of microbreweries, and Miller, of course.
Right.
So we composted last year, and food waste like fruits and vegetables. We composted 40 million pounds of carbon and nitrogen into thousands of yards of compost. So we don't grow on existing soil. We put 2 feet of new soil on top of, asphalt, concrete, rooftops to be able to grow our food.
Got it. Will, we're down to the last 3 minutes or so. What are some of your more exciting projects that you're excited about in the city of Milwaukee? What's coming up that you're pumped about?
Well, we just launched a project recently where I wanted to really start something with the daycares, because daycares are always in sessions where schools.
Yeah.
We work with schools, and we do school gardens and get our food into Milwaukee public schools. But we wanted to do daycares, so I had a press conference, and we announced that we put in free gardens at daycares. And basically, we're going to start out with just these 4x4, 6x6 gardens,
right?
With our compost, and plant cherry tomatoes. About 3 or 4 cherry tomatoes, 3 or 4 Roma tomatoes, and this will give those daycare preschoolers a chance to go out when those tomatoes mature and be able to eat and get them started on eating some food that's good for them. Grow good soil.
We got 2 minutes left. Any tips for our listeners out there that want to farm, that want to learn to be a farmer, or they want to do some urban farming or be part of what you're doing at Growing Power and growingpower.org?
Well, I would say for them to seek out some hands-on training. You can't learn how to farm in a classroom. You have to go out and do it and practice the art, because it is an art growing food this way intensively. And start out by getting some good soil. A lot of times you have to start out by growing your soil a year before you actually grow plants. So that's the most important thing, because our soil in our cities and even in our suburban and rural communities is contaminated. So we have to get soil tests and be able to grow new soil to be able to grow this high nutritional food that we need to grow.
We're down to the last minute, Will. Any last thoughts? You've led a fascinating life. You broke the racial barriers. You've had tremendous success from bottom to top. Any last thoughts for our listeners out there?
Well, I think we're all involved in the food system, whether we like it or not. We have to eat food to survive, and I would seek out locally grown food, support those farmers, that whether they're rural or urban farmers, suburban farmers, support them. Go to farmers markets, get involved. There's so many ways to get involved. Volunteers, we get thousands of volunteers through our organization. People really like to volunteer and help and become a part. But look for local food labels at your grocery stores. Go to farmers markets, go to farm stands in your communities. Help youth who are trying to get involved. Get your kids eating food at a very early age. Even women at prenatal stage, eat good food. Try to eat food without chemicals. Only about 2% of the food in the nation is organic So we really need to grow that sector. It's important for us to be very proactive and get involved, because our good food is our medicine. If everybody can remember that, then we could end this healthcare crisis in America. That's the only way we're going to end the healthcare crisis, is by eating good food and having a healthy body.
Well, thank you, Will. And please, for all listeners out there, get involved at growingpower.org. Support Will Allen's great organization. The world needs more Will Allens. Will Allen, you're an inspiring innovator and sustainability superstar, and truly living proof that green is good.
Thank you very much.